All right, I think I'm going. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Telescope Talk. My name is Tony Darnell from deepastronomy.space, and today we are going to be going old school. We're going to be looking at paper. That's right, paper analog books. And we're going to talk about star atlases and Planispheres and what it's like to be Wil Tirion, because I interviewed him, I guess it was about 2 months ago now, and I am just now getting around to showing this interview. One of the things I'm doing with these hangouts now is because scheduling has been such a nightmare for so many people that, oh, thanks, guys. I'm glad you guys can hear me. I'm looking at Discord right now. Uh, because it's a thing, right? When you watch a deep astronomy hangout, who knows what's going to work. So anyway, thanks for letting me know the sound's coming through. Hopefully the video will too. So like I was saying, one of the things I'm doing with these hangouts is for some people who cannot attend and do these at 3 o'clock Eastern time, which is really hard for a lot of people, especially people in Europe and also way back in Hawaii, which is 6 hours behind. I've taken to starting to record some of these, and so I recorded this with Wil a couple of months ago, and I've only just now gotten around to streaming it to you. So I'm going to start the interview here in just a second, but I need to make a couple quick announcements. This will probably be the last Telescope Talk hangout for a while, whether it's amateur or pro, for a number of reasons. The pro hangouts were going well. The pro hangouts were designed to talk about ground-based observatories and things like that. But there just hasn't, because of financial issues, I've just not been able to continue those any longer. And because I also do the Space Junk podcast. You see that on my t-shirt? I guess you can't with the lower third, but if I do this, you can't. Space Junk podcast. We cover a lot of this stuff that I talk about on Telescope Talk anyway. So check out Space Junk podcast if you have not. It's sponsored by OPT as well, and we try to have an episode up every week. This one coming up this week, I think, is going to really be pushing the envelope in terms of things that we talk about, but you guys can let me know what your opinion is. And also go to spacejunkpodcast.com, because that website is now up, and that it'll tell you the latest and greatest episodes that are coming. I'm getting ready to post one here after this hangout later today. I just have to do some more editing, and then I'll post it up. So that's where we are with these hangouts. I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but I have other good news, everyone. The Future in Space hangouts have been picked back up again by the American Astronautical Society, and so we'll be starting those tentatively, I think, June 20th, with the first one I'm hoping to be on SphereX, but I don't know yet. This is all still being worked out. The only thing we've decided is that we're picking them back up again and that we're starting in June. There will be 10 of those for the remainder of 2019. And the schedule will be posted. I promise it will be posted on the Deep Astronomy Hangout calendar on deepastronomy.space/live. There's a calendar there where as soon as I get guests lined up, then I put it on that calendar, and you'll see, and I'll see when they are. There's going to be one in June, one in July, one in August, 2 in September, 2 in October, 2 in November, and 1 in December. So that should be the schedule. Plus, I'm going to a couple of meetings, and I'm going to live stream those as well. So good news there on that front. So let's go ahead and talk about stuffs. Now, if you're a young person getting into amateur astronomy, then you're not going to know anything what I'm talking about. But back in the day, okay, let me just try something. I'm playing around with some things here. First of all, that's Panther Cam. There's Panther, my doggy. Panther, hello, boy. Wake up. Nope, he's not getting up. He's very tired. Okay, but if on my desk over here, I have several things. I have a planisphere, which I will talk about here briefly in a little bit. And there's also the star atlases. 2 different kinds of star atlases. Norton's, and I have another one that I'll show you in just a minute. But these are what I learned how to find my way around the night sky. Norton Star Atlas. This was given to me when I was in high school, And here is, I found in a bookstore, I found an older version around as well. This one's in 1966. So this is what people of my generation used to learn the night sky. We also use these fancy dancy things called a planisphere. And you don't know what this is, probably because you use an app on your phone to do this. I like apps too; they work great. But I'm going to show you a little bit about this in just a minute. And finally, we're going to be talking about this book here, the 2019 Guide to the Night Sky. This is illustrated by my guest today, and I put links to this in the description box. They're not affiliate links. You don't, if you buy them, it's fine. I just wanted to let you guys know these are published by Firefly Books, who made Wil available to me for this interview. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the interview. I'll be reading your comments while I play it. I think it's about 20 minutes. So it's not going to be the full hour. And then I'll come back. We'll talk planispheres. We'll talk star atlases, and I'll also take your questions. I should also mention that for the first time, it doesn't show me anybody watching, but I'm streaming on LinkedIn, and I don't know how this is going to come out, but Restream, the company I use to send this one stream out to everybody, is now just added LinkedIn streaming. So I'm there if you want to watch it there. But otherwise, it's on the Deep Astronomy page on Facebook. Periscope, I'm on there as well. And Twitch, I should be streaming there. One person's watching on Twitch, so hey there. And the rest of you are on YouTube. I have all of these chats conglomerated into an app, so I should see them all, and we can talk. So I'll be watching as I start streaming this. So let me go ahead and get going. Okay, well, I want to welcome my guest, Wil Tirion. He's a star map maker, a publisher, an author. He's been around for a very long time, and I'm very excited to talk with him because in my early years as an amateur astronomer, I had many telescopes, and I've started with a C8. I've still got my Edmund Astroscan sitting on the floor here, and I have all kinds of telescopes throughout the years. I had a LX200, but beside every single one of those telescopes was his star atlas that he had produced. I guess it was in the 80s or the 90s, or maybe
it was published in 1981.
Okay, 1981. I've always had in my telescope case his Sky Atlas 2000, and it was a go-to reference for me to see the sky and to learn where the constellations were, because in there was all kinds of great information, Messier objects and galaxies and things that were very finely positioned in the chart, so we could find them in our telescopes. Since then, we've progressed into quite a few things, but we're going to talk about some of those with my guest today. But Wil, I want to thank you so much for taking time out to talk with me.
My pleasure.
Okay, and where are you right now anyway? Are you in the UK, or you're in Europe? Where are you?
I live in the Netherlands.
You live in the Netherlands, okay.
Yes, and that's where I am right now, very close to Rotterdam.
Okay. Well, I think one of your current books is, we're going to talk about this one right now. It's the 2019 Guide to the Night Sky. This is obviously a paper analog book. Now, tell us a little bit about this book first before I ask you some questions about it. What is this book for, and why did you publish it? And you're also publishing it with Storm Dunlop. Let me just.
Yes. Well, I am not the publisher. HarperCollins got the idea to make a yearbook. Storm Dunlop was willing to write it, and I do all the illustrations plus the layout. So that's my part of the job. But it's for just for people who are interested to know what is in the sky after sunset. When they see a bright star there and they want to know what it is, they can look it up. So it's for beginners, mainly.
And another book that I always had with me in my telescope case back in the 80s and the 90s, and this book reminds me of it, was the Observer's Handbook. Do you remember those from? I think it was was it the Royal Canadian Society that published that? Anyway, there was it was called the Observer's Handbook, and there was one for every year, and it was about this size. Do you remember those? Now, this reminds me a lot of that, of that
There are
book.
several other books in England, because this is mainly English, published in England by HarperCollins, and you have the Canadian edition. There are 3 editions right now of the book, but it's for the British market, and there also are different books, also the same size, the Phillips Guide to the Night Sky, and it's a little different, the title, can't remember it now. But there are several yearbooks in England.
Now, describe, you said that this book was for a beginner. Now, describe how you imagine a beginner just getting started with the night sky. Maybe they've come across your book on a bookshelf in a bookstore, or they've ordered it from an online seller. What do you imagine? How do you imagine a person using this book? It's a guide.
Well,
So you, I mean, in it, for example, there's a wonderfully written introduction in here about the celestial sphere, what the ecliptic is. There's definitions of constellations. You talk about what an asterism is. That's an important difference between a constellation and it's a group of stars. There's a section on the planets in the introduction. So there's a lot of terminology in here that
that's right.
I think is important. You don't get this, for example. That was my dog. You don't get this, for example, if you have a go-to telescope from Celestron, right? You're not going to get this information. You're going to have to already know what
right.
these things are. So there's a good background of basic information in here for a beginner. But describe to us how you think a typical user might use this book.
Yes, as I said, somebody who's interested in the sky, and he wants to know what he's looking at when he's looking up. He doesn't have a telescope or something like that. He just looks at the stars and wants to know where to look to find Venus or Mercury or Jupiter or whatever.
And the way, I mean, just describe a little bit about, well, why don't you describe for us how the book is organized?
But there's an interesting introduction to show what you can see in the sky, what constellations are, what the difference is between planets and stars, what meteors are, all those things that you need to know before you start observing anything. Then there's a description of the constellations, the northern constellations, and we have now an Australian edition as well with the southern constellations. So, and then you get the introduction to the month-by-month guide, and the month-by-month guide tells you what position the moon is in, what the phases are, how the sky differs from month to month, and where you can find the planets. They're all drawn in those half-circular maps.
Right. And so let's say you're out in March this month. There's 2 ways you can use the book. There's a map that shows you if you're standing outside looking north, and if you're standing outside looking south.
Right.
And it gives you the view of the sky in those areas. And the south is usually the most interesting, folks, because you look, that's where the ecliptic plane usually is. That's where you'll see planets going along. You'll see the moon, and of course that's the path of the sun. So you'll see all of those things by looking south. And it's a really good way to just very simply learn the night sky, because I can't tell you enough how important it is. If you've just spent, I don't know, let's say $4,000 on a go-to telescope, right? And you could tell it, show me the Andromeda Galaxy, and it goes over, and there's the Andromeda Galaxy sitting in your eyepiece, and you're looking at it going, oh, that's a beautiful fuzzy patch. But you really aren't getting a sense of its position in the sky, because the telescope's done all that for you. You don't really even need to know which way is north and south. Assuming someone set your telescope up for you, because you're going to need at least that. But telescopes these days even do that. They will, you just put them up on a tripod, make sure they're level, turn it on, and say, set yourself up. And it will do that. It will go and it'll look and it'll see where everything is. And then you're ready to go. So in my opinion, there's a bit of a disconnect between yourself and the night sky when you use a telescope like that, if you're a beginner. Now, if you're an advanced amateur, this is all great stuff
Yeah,
because you
yeah.
can just set up and go. But if you're learning the night sky, it can be a bit of a hindrance. What do you think of that, Will?
Personally, I prefer to look at the sky just using my eyes or binoculars. Almost never use a telescope.
Yeah, and
There
I'm the
was,
same way. And I'll be honest. I love the night sky. I have several telescopes, but I do most of my observing just standing outside looking up.
yeah.
That's really where I do most of my observing. The recent eclipse we had a few weeks ago, that was what I did. I didn't even get out a pair of binoculars. I just sit there and got a chair and sat and looked at the eclipse as it went by.
My
So,
wife and I visited the Texas Star Party about 15 years ago, and she enjoyed it most to sit in the field, just in a chair and looking up,
yeah,
because the
yeah.
sky was amazingly bright, and she didn't need to see blots in a telescope.
I know. And things like meteor showers, all of that stuff. It's some of my favorite things because you
Okay,
just
yeah,
don't need anything but your eyeballs
yes,
to do this. Okay,
right.
well I want to let's move on a little bit to making maps. That's your specialty.
Yeah.
That's what you describe yourself as a star map maker. How did you get started in this? First of all, let's start there.
When I was 10 years old, I received a book about astronomy because that was my main interest in those days. And there was a little fold-out star map in the back, and that drew my attention. And I started looking at the sky, comparing it with the map, and saw, well, it's not very accurate. And I started drawing my own star charts as a child. They all ended in the trash, but that's not important. But the hobby got a little in the back until the end of the 70s. After I got married, I built first my own telescope. And then I said, well, now I'm going to do what I always wanted to do. I'm going to make a star atlas. And the first set of star maps I made was published by the Baa Star Charts. You never heard of it, probably.
No, I haven't heard of that one.
Not,
I've heard of
not
a lot, but not that one.
No. And then after that was published, I was encouraged to do a larger job. And Storm Dunlop was one of the people who encouraged me to have that one published in America. And that was Sky Atlas 2000, completely drawn on the drawing table with pen and ink and all the old-fashioned stuff.
So explain to me how you got the astrometric information onto the paper. What's that process like? How do you take the known positions of stars and translate them to a chart?
Well, the first thing you have to learn is how map projections work. So I did a lot of reading, and then I started setting up a grid, a very accurate grid, and used the catalog and reading, plotting, a lot of work. Sky Atlas 2000 took me 2.5 years in my spare time because I had a full-time job then as a graphic designer. So it was completely done in my free hours, in the morning, in the evening, in the weekends, and it took me 2.5 hours. And then yeah.
How many stars were in that atlas? Do you know? Well, of course you know. You put them there.
The first edition had 32,000 stars, not counting the overlap areas, but then you have many more, of course. 32,000. And the second edition had, no, let's say it wrong, 42,000.
Okay.
And the second edition had almost 80,000. And that was a computer plotted one.
That was computer plotted. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the second edition was.
All right. Well, the first edition then. So 32 to 40,000 times, you looked up a star coordinate and then very accurately placed it on your grid that you had for your map projection.
Yeah,
and
right.
you did that by hand?
Yes.
Wow, that's astonishing. And then I sold my copy with my last telescope that I sold, and I really wish I still had it now. But if you look at the atlas itself, you see it's not just dots. There's all kinds of color and information in there to help reference you to the night sky. So it's really a work of art, folks. If you can get, is it still in print or is it all? Is it?
No. Even the second edition by Sky Publishing Corporation has now been stopped. They
Okay.
no longer reprint it. They have left copies of the black and white versions, but the standard deluxe version is sold out already 2 years, and they don't plan to reprint it because they are promoting their own star atlas, the Pocket Sky Atlas by Roger Sinnott.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's I'm just kicking myself even more for having gotten rid of my copy. It was dog-eared though. It was definitely well used.
Yeah. Well,
And it was ripped and torn. I'd stepped on it quite a few times, so it got a lot of use. Well, let's talk a little bit about the transition. How has becoming a star map maker changed from when you started to now we're in this digital world? Do you still make star maps now? And well, first let's start there. Do you still make them?
yes,
I
every
mean,
day.
you published in this book, so you
Yes.
still do this, but how has making the maps changed for you since that first edition of Skyless 2000?
A lot, because I was used to do everything on a drawing table until the beginning of the 90s. And then I started hearing from the publisher, we don't want artwork on paper anymore, we want it digitally. And I didn't know anything about computers. So I started asking publishers, what do you advise me? And they all said, well, buy an Apple computer or a Mac and the program Adobe Illustrator. And from 1995, yes, I bought my first Mac. I bought Adobe Illustrator and I started reading, doing it until I knew the program, but still learning every day when I use it.
Tell me about it. I know just enough of Adobe Illustrator to get myself lost and in a lot of trouble, but yeah. So how then, what's the process like from getting to now? We have sky catalogs that are digital. They're put out by all kinds, NASA has some from Hubble. There's lots of and now we've got Gaia up there doing the most accurate measurements of over, I think it's over 1 billion stars now, getting the astrometric information. What's the process now for getting that information into a star map?
I do not use that information.
Oh, you don't use the computerized. Oh,
yeah. I have several computer programs about astronomy, like the program Guide. Do you know that?
Can you spell it? Is Guide?
Guide.
No.
Yeah, just as the title of that book you have there, Guide.
Okay, yeah.
That's the name of the program.
Oh, no, I've never used that
You
one.
can create a star map on the screen, export it, open it in Adobe Illustrator, and change it any way you want, because that program Guide makes beautiful vector images of all stars on the screen. So it's not just a screenshot when you export that map, it's a vector image.
Right.
In Illustrator, you can scale all the stars up and down. You can do anything you want, change colors, and then turn it into a beautiful star map. It's much easier than those days on the drawing table.
Well, it sounds like it's still manual, though, to some extent. I mean, you're reading in,
yes.
You're making your star map with this one program, reading it into another Illustrator.
Yeah,
and then
you create a nice map.
And
because most computer programs do not create nice maps, in my opinion.
Well, in your opinion, what is a nice map? What does make a nice map?
In the first place, it has to look like the sky. It doesn't have to be crowded with names and symbols and things like that. It has to be quiet to look at, just like the sky.
But there's other information that you convey in a map at a glance. For example, the size of the circles that are stars correspond to their brightness, right? So there's a magnitude scale of how bright stars are. So real big stars are bright in a printed map, and faint stars are
tiny
dots. So how low down do you go? How dim do you go in magnitude for your star maps these days?
It depends on the publisher, what he wants, or the writer I work with, what he wants. I do a lot of work for Govert Schilling. Maybe you know the name. He writes in Sky and Telescope as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's a Dutch science writer. And he comes up with an idea for a constellation atlas, and he says, Wil, I need star maps down to magnitude 5.5 or to the magnitude 6. And this colors, that style, go on, make a sample. And then I do that, and he says it's okay, and then I have to make 88 maps for each constellation one. Things like that. Most of the time, the publisher decides what I have to do.
I see. Okay, and it sounds like then that you can tailor these requests to whatever the thing is now. And so when you made this book, what magnitude did you decide to go down to with the charts in this book?
The general sky maps are
Yes.
down to magnitude 4.5, but in places fainter stars are added to make a constellation complete, especially in the southern hemisphere. And many constellations that are only faint stars. And then I go down to 5 or 5.5.
And that sounds about like that's pretty close to the limit of the naked eye, because I imagine it's important in this book to convey what the sky would look like under average sky viewing conditions. And 6 magnitude is about as deep as you can get, I think.
Yeah.
So
not here in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Why is that? Is it cloudy or just a lot of light pollution? Or both?
Light pollution.
Yeah, it's everywhere here too.
Air pollution as well.
Yeah, I know it's the same here. It's terrible. Okay, well, I wanted like to move just a little bit to your website, because I was in getting ready for talking with you. I went to your website, wil-tirion.com. And you've got some really cool things here. If you click on maps, folks, and I'll show you, I'll put a link to this in the description box so you can see that. But you've got this cool thing that I think you also have hanging on your wall behind you called splash maps. These are enormous printed all sky maps. Tell us a little bit about those.
There was a man who contacted me. It was Mr. What's his name again? The owner of Splash Maps. And he had a friend who was interested in stars, and he wanted to make a star map specially for that friend. So we got a deal. I designed a map, sent it to him, and when the man who prints those maps saw that, he got very enthusiastic about it and said, "Can we take that into our how do you call that? Well, can we sell that? Put it on our..."
Right.
You see, my English is not my own language, so sometimes I have to look for words.
Oh, that's quite all right. So yeah, commercial use for the...
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, they have it on their website.
Right. And so these are 72 by 72 centimeters. They are printed on a cloth, I guess, that is suitable for all kinds of conditions, something that I think is really nice. So, well, that's great. And it goes down to magnitude 6.0. I just wanted to point that out, folks, because I was going through his website and just really was struck by those. So check them out. I'll also put a link in the description box for you guys to check those out as well. So it's been amazing talking with you, but let me ask you a little bit about the future. What are you working on now? And do you have any future projects that you'd like to get involved in?
Guess what I'm working on now?
2020.
This is 2019, 3 editions.
Yeah.
The English edition, the North American edition, and the Southern edition.
Ah, okay.
Australia, South Africa. And I just finished 3 2020 books. So they're ready to go to the publishers.
Oh, that's great. So it sounds like you're staying really busy with this, even though digital stuff, when it comes to star maps, you can get them all. You can get software, you can get apps on your phone, but there's nothing like a book in your hand with maps.
I agree.
that can show you these things, folks. So I would highly recommend checking out these books. I'll have links to all this stuff in the description box so you can check them all out. Wil Tirion, I want to thank you so much for taking time out to talk with me. I look forward to getting your maps, as I always have. I'm going to get one of these splash maps because I just think they're the coolest things ever. So thank you for taking time out to talk with me.
Thank you for asking me.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right.
Have
We'll
a
talk.
nice day.
You too. All right. Okay, that was it. Okay, Sol Tube 44. How's that? Is that good now? Are you happy? Sol Tube 44. Sol Tube. I am here and I am live. But that part wasn't. That bit was pre-recorded, and that was Wil Tirion. If you've been an amateur astronomer for any length of time, or if you're an old timer especially, you know who that guy was. He is awesome. And it may seem strange to be talking about this kind of stuff at this day and age, with paper, with books like this that have, printed star maps in them, and phases of the moon, and things that you can easily just do on your smartphone. All this stuff is done on your smartphone now. So what's the big deal about having this? Well, first of all, there's no cables here. There's nothing to forget. There's no batteries. So if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you forget a cable and you can't plug in your computer, well, it's all basically useless, right? But or you don't have signal where your cell phone signal where you're observing, or your cell phone battery dies. These are all things that are just problem with having technology, but you don't have any of that with these books. And I get it. I know this is old school. This is boring for a lot of the younger people. But if you take the time to look through some of these books, there's nothing like owning a book and reading a book. I mean, I love my Kindle, right? I read everything on my Kindle. I love e-readers and e-books. I read them. Most of what I read now is on a Kindle. But I can tell you, one of the things I don't like about it is that I lose my place all the time. I don't know where I am in the book sometimes, and suddenly it just ends, and I'm thinking, oh, I didn't know the book was coming to an end that quickly. It's just not the same. Or if you're trying to find something else in an ebook, it's not the same. You could just thumb through these books and see them. So there's a lot to be said for having printed star charts. And I want to talk just a little bit about planispheres. Now, planispheres are just disks, okay? And they're basically two disks, one disk on top of another, okay? In the background is a bunch of stars, and in the front is a circle that has dates and times all around the periphery. And to use this, all you got to do here, and let me try this. I'm gonna put it on Panther Cam here for a minute, and I'm just gonna see how does this show up. Yeah, okay. So you see how there's days of the month all the way around this thing, and if you look at, so what is today? Today the 16th. So May 16th is right there, okay? And if you put the time of night, the time of day you're going to be outside looking, and let's say I'm going to be outside 11 p.m. local time. I just put 11 p.m. right there. Come on, get in focus. Come on, focus. Hopefully, there it goes. And 11 p.m. this evening on May 16th, then what is in the disk is what will be up tonight, okay? And so, to use it, it's very simple. You see, there is a northern horizon here, a southern horizon here, and you just put this little circle dot here thingy where the North Star is, and it shows you all the stars that are up that night, all the constellations, and you could just spend some time with it, and just sit in a chair with a little flashlight, a little red flashlight, and just try and find all the constellations up there. And you hold it up over your head, and you just look up. You just look up, and you can see what's up in the sky. And if you want to turn around and see what's in the Southern hemisphere, you just put this on the southern hemisphere and turn around the other way. It's hard for me to do all this because I'm got to stay talking into the mic, but these are awesome and they're simple to use. And this one's plastic and it's very durable, and they don't cost that much. You're looking at maybe I think $12 for that. So planispheres are a really good thing, and there's something I think you should just learn, because one of the acts of just moving this around and seeing how the sky changes from night to night is a really useful experience. I mean, it helps you understand more about the mechanics of what's going on over our heads. Okay. So there's links to this stuff down in the description box, and you can check them out. Firefly Books, where they sent me copies to review, and also to interview Wil Tirion. That was awesome. So I want to thank them for sending me copies of these, as well as letting me interview Wil. And as far as the review of the books themselves, I think that if you want a summary, an easy to get to summary of what's up, like for example, every single month is loaded up with a looking south, and there's also a looking north page. Okay, so if you're looking north and looking south, this is what you would see. And these are maps that are all written or that are drawn by Wil with his software, and they were written by a guy named Storm Dunlop, which I have had the pleasure of meeting once many years ago. So there you go. So these are they're small and lightweight. They give you a summary of what's up each month, and the reason they make them for different years is that there's different celestial events that it highlights in a given month. So you keep buying them. I used to have a bookshelf full of the Observer's Handbooks, which I know now were put out by the Royal Astronomical Society. So I had those. The first one I ever bought was in 1975, and I had them all the way through the 90s. So anyway, okay. So Gregorius, let me get to a couple of questions here. Peter Q goes, I did that with a torch in the back garden at night. Yeah, I mean, it's simple, and it's just, I don't know, man. We gotta remember to connect to the heavens with just simple stuff sometimes, and don't let the apps get in our way. Gregorius, if I live in the equator, which version of the atlas should I get? That's always one. Let's see. They do a northern and they do a northern and a southern hemisphere one. As you heard him say, they do them for different parts. I guess you got to get them both, man. But because you have the wonder of living on the equator, you get to see all kinds of cool stuff. You get both poles, so throughout the year, so that's really great. Let's see. The brain is a go-to computer without the automatic scope mechanism, says Andrew Planet. Yes, that's true. Let's see. Ride Air Day. Ride Air Day. I get it. Okay. I took astronomy my senior year. I kind of remember that. I kind of remember this. Super cool. I think my teacher possibly gave me one. Yeah, I mean, they're inexpensive. Like I said, I had this one. This Norton Star Atlas is 1966. It was their 15th edition, and here are the star charts that were in that. That were in this circa the epic 1950, I guess. And yeah, so I mean, these were what you found. I mean, the difference between this kind of star atlas and the one in this night sky is the magnitude of stars that it goes down to. These go down to, it doesn't say on the cover and I forgot, but it probably goes down to like 6th or 7th magnitude. So yeah, there's probably a lot dimmer stars in here, but these are better for if you're looking through an eyepiece and you want to match a field with things that a telescope would show you. These work better. And then of course they came out with different versions. This one I got in high school, and it also came with a card insert that showed you where all the Messier objects were. And so you can just take this card out and see what's up throughout the year, to see what planets were, or to see what Messier objects were up. And but the star chart stayed the same. So I mean, the way it looked anyway. The only thing that would change is as the precession of the Earth goes through its motions, the stars slightly change position, things like that. So they would update these to different epochs. Okay, well that's it. Let's see. Wow, it's only, yeah. So like I said before, this is probably my last telescope talk hangout. If I do them, it'll be intermittent and unplanned. It won't be on a regular basis anymore. And we're gonna listen to the Space Junk podcast right here, and go to spacejunkpodcast.com to find out what's going on. It's on, the podcast is on all of the podcast aggregators, including Spotify and iTunes and all that crap. Andrew Planet you did not know that Planispheres existed? Really? Well, I'm glad I introduced them to you. Go get a Planisphere. They are, I mean, I don't know if you can see, but I have a really old one. Can you see it? Let me see if I can turn this camera. No, it's the wrong way. No, that's the right way. Are you getting seasick? So right there above the armillary sphere that I have, there's a really old, it's falling apart, Planisphere that I've had since I was a kid. I don't take it off the wall though, because it's basically torn all to bits. So I have that one. And you can get paper ones. Sky and Tel sells them. And like I said, Wil is also, he used to sell his own Star Atlas, and it used to be published by Sky Publishing, but then they went and did their own. So, wait a minute, what am I saying? Gosh, I do have another telescope talk hangout coming up. And Sky and Telescope is what reminded me of it. Kelly Beatty, senior editor at Sky and Tel, is going to join me on June 13th, I believe. It's the middle of June. Whatever Thursday is the second Thursday of June. And he'll be joining me live. We'll be here live. It won't be pre-recorded. That's why, I met him at NEAF, and we talked a long time, and I asked him to be on Telescope Talk, so he'll be joining me in about a month, I guess. So he's going to Wales, I guess, right now for some reason. I mean, why does anybody go to Wales? But I'm kidding. I love Wales. I do. I mean, I think Wales is beautiful. My wife, not so much, but I love it. And so he'll be back on. So there is another telescope talk coming. But like I said, they won't be every week. Okay, they'll be whenever I can schedule something. And it's not going to be appropriate for the Space Junk podcast. So there you go. All right. Where are we? Do we have any questions? Yeah, Gregorius, Cosmic Lettuce, I agree with what you said. He goes, you're in a lucky position on this planet. Cheers and enjoy. My wife was an exchange student in Sumatra back in the mid-'80s. Yeah, it's really, the equator is awesome. I mean, not only that, but it's tropical. So, yay. Let's see. Larry says, I've worked with Kelly. Oh, good. Well, hopefully you can make the hangout. And he's a good guy. He really is. Sky and Telescope's going through some interesting times. I think they're up for sale right now as a company or as a publication. The people that currently own them, I think, have put them up for sale. They'll get sold and it'll keep going. But Sky and Tel's going through a little bit of a change right now. But it's an amazing magazine. I've had it for gosh, when did I start? I guess the 70s again. I've had Sky and Tel magazines and astronomy magazines that long. So yeah. Superluminal. Can you identify all the major constellation? Everyone knows Orion and Ursa Major, but I've recently been learning to identify Cepheus. Yeah, I can. Cepheus looks like a house. Draco, the dragon. That looks like a snake. It goes in. The tail goes in between the big and little dippers. Cepheus looks like a house, an upside that a kid might draw. It's got 4 stars that make the square of the house, and then a few stars that make a little roof. It doesn't look at all like a king, and nor does Cassiopeia, the queen, look like a queen. It looks like a sideways M or a W. But these are all circumpolar constellations, and these are all constellations that throughout the year or throughout the evening go around the North Star, and they don't set below the horizon at any time of the year. No matter what time of the year the Earth is in its orbit around the sun, the circumpolar constellations will always be up. And those constellations include, like I said, Cepheus, Draco the Dragon, Ursa Minor, and the Little Dipper. Little Dipper is an asterism, which is a sub-pattern of stars belonging to a constellation called the Little Bear. There's Ursa Major, of which within it is the Big Dipper. And so that's also a circumpolar constellation. Bootes, Bootes really is hard to do, but the way I always find Bootes is you arc to Arcturus. You take the handle of the Big Dipper. I wonder if I can show this on my Panther Cam. Okay. So here is, where is it? Oh, it's too reflective for this right here. Okay. Ursa Major is right there. That's the Big Dipper. And you see the 3 stars of the handle of the Big Dipper. And if you arc to Arcturus, in other words, follow these 3 stars right here, and you arc, you'll reach a bright star right there called Arcturus. It's a red star. And if you arc to Arcturus, you are in the constellation Bootes, and you can see the other stars in that pattern. It doesn't really look like much of a constellation. It's hard to find that constellation, but that's the way I always find it, is I arc to Arcturus. And you can spike to Spica once you're at Arcturus. So if you arc to Arcturus right there, and then you spike to Spica. There's Spica. That's in the constellation Virgo. So you go Arcturus and you spike down to Spica, which is right there. And tonight at what time? What are we set for here? We're set for, actually, let me go back to the night. So tonight at 10 o'clock. I'll just go tonight at 10 o'clock. Oh, it's not up. Sorry. Oh yeah, it is. So tonight at 8 o'clock, or 10 o'clock. So here's tonight at 10 o'clock. And let's see where I have to get my, oh, now the Big Dipper is upside down. Here's the Big Dipper. And if you arc to Arcturus, you spike to Spica right here toward the south. This is, towards the south. So there's Arcturus. You spike to Spica. And you're in the southern, now you're near the southern horizon. And you might want to turn this way to see it. So anyway, there's a bit of a distraction, but that's how I find Bootes, guys. And so, yeah, it sort of looks like an ice cream cone, cosmic lettuce. You're right. Let's see. Any other questions? Carina Nebula would be a good one to paint. Yes, it would. Princess TS01. I'm seeking a good astronomy target to paint in oil this summer. Oh gosh, yes. Definitely the Carina Nebula is a good one. And an oops. You guys are still looking at Panther. God. Yes. So Eta Carina is a really good one. Another one is oh shoot, I drew a blank. What was I going to say? Oh, the Southern Crab Nebula is another good one. It's in the Southern Hemisphere. I just did a video on it. Hubble just released its 29th anniversary image on it. Check it out. It's beautiful. I like that one a lot too. It's very similar. It's very Eta Carina E because it's got 2 lobes on it, a lot like Eta Carina does. So that'd be my choices. And of course, Pillars of Creation are always a good one too, but I think that might be overdone quite a bit. So let's see. All righty, guys. Great doggy boy. Yeah, Panther. The thing about Panther, let me just. I love him. We got him at a. We got him at the pound here in Volusia County, and he was a full grown half. He's a half lab, half pit bull mix, and he's a gorgeous dog. I mean, if Batman had a dog, he would look like Panther. Okay. The problem is whoever had him before us really did a number on him, and I think there's a big fighting community here in Florida, sadly, and unfortunately. And this dog is terrified. I had him a full year before I could approach him from above and actually try and pet him, because every time I would go at try to pet him from above, he would shrink down. So whoever abused him was a man, and whenever we can't have company over because he will go nuts. I mean, and he's scary. And when a dog is afraid and acting that way, then you really can't control him, and he could hurt somebody. So on the one hand, we love him and we want to take care of him, but on another, we have to make a lot of sacrifices for him, because like I said, having family over is a real problem. We have to put him away, put him in his kennel, and all kinds of other things, and it's just scary. So anyway, that's my little Panther. He's a good boy, and he is the goodest of all boys. There he is, laying on the floor, doing what Panther does best. Okay, well, I'm sorry. This is a bit of a rambling hangout, folks. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I'm sure you guys have a CFA hangout coming out soon, a CFA lecture coming on soon. So I'm going to let you guys go off to that. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget, we have Telescope Talk coming back in middle of June with Kelly Beatty from S&T. I'm glad I remembered that. And then the week after that is when I think we're starting back up Future in Space. Have not reached Harley yet, so it'll probably be just me. And maybe somebody from the Astronautical Society. I don't know yet, but we'll be starting back officially with the Future in Space Hangouts in June. So we hope you guys can watch and check it out. Okay, one more quick question. Superluminal, did you find that after a while you didn't need star maps for casual observing session? I can find many things already without a star map, like M81, M51, the double cluster, etc. Oh yeah. After a while, you're going to know this stuff by heart. In fact, you're going to be able to go anywhere in the country or the world, and you look up, and you're going to know where you're at. You're going to be able to see what latitude you are just by looking at how high the Big Dipper or the North Star is. And the same is true in the Southern Hemisphere. You have to use, I guess, the Southern Cross is probably the most prominent southern polar constellation. But you can tell where you are on the planet by how high or how low those stars are. Gregorius is in the equator. He sees the North Star way on his northern horizon. I'm in Florida. I see it about 20 degrees higher than he does. When I was living in Colorado, I saw it at 20 degrees higher than that. So it really gives you a good sense of where you are on the planet. You feel a connection to the cosmos that you just cannot get any other way. I don't care who you are, what you say. The better you know the night sky, the better connected you are to the heavens. And yeah, you could point to something and say, that's where the Whirlpool galaxy is. And you can look and say, that you see, if you look carefully in the constellation Andromeda, you can see a fuzz patch. If you just look hard enough on a dark sky, you might just see a fuzzy patch called M31. So absolutely, you get better. I don't need this stuff anymore. When I'm in the Southern Hemisphere, I do, because I don't know any of the constellations, and usually I'm there in dark skies, and it's overwhelming anyway. So I need help. But with stuff like this, I don't need this stuff anymore. What I like, though, there's an app. What's that app called that I really, really like? Because it plays music. It's called Skyview free, and it looks kind of like this, but what you can't see, maybe you can, is the stars are overlaid on top of whatever the camera is showing you, and it's really kind of cool. So as you move the camera up and down, the stars that are visible through that field show up in the foreground, and it plays music. It's like a droning kind of cosmosy music. So I love it. I mean, I just sit here and I just play around and listen to the music sometimes. I did that with the lunar eclipse. So, um, so yeah, Uncle Bill said he found guide. Yes, it's at projectpluto.com. By the way, thank you for finding that for me. I hope I can download it after I'm done here, but it looks like I have to buy a DVD or ask for a DVD to be sent. Anyway, it's the software that Wil uses to start his star maps. And I really want to check it out because he said that it puts out really nice vector images that you can use as a starting point for his, and that's what he uses as a starting point for his beautiful star atlas maps. So cool. Okay, well, I got to go. Enjoy CFA, guys. See you in a I don't think I'll be back next week for any hangouts. So, but I will be picking up. We've got Spaceman News in production going right now, and I've got another vlog post coming also in the coming few days. So keep an eye out for that. Don't forget to check out Space Junk Podcast. Those come out every week, and I'm getting ready to put one out later today. So, okay. And so on behalf of Wil Tirion, I want to thank you all so much for watching. And as always, keep looking up. I have to remember not to cut it off too soon. Standing by.